this shows is before the war, before estimated 130,000 deaths of Tamil civilians, the Tamils asked for a separate state. After the war, after you saw 130,000 Tamil civilians die, the Tamils still wanted a separate state. What does that tell you? The Tamils do not have confidence in the Sri Lankan government. They do not believe they will be treated as equals by the Sri Lankan government. The Tamils in Sri Lanka showed this through voting, and the Tamil diaspora showed this through rallies, protests, and gatherings. However, the ceasefire was filled with broken promises. There were several agreements that were broken by the Sri Lankan government as well as by the Tamil Tigers. There were violations of the ceasefire. Churches and orphanages were bombed by the Sri Lankan government. Activists, political leaders, and journalists and aid workers were killed by the Sri Lankan government, and then the Tamil Tigers have been accused of this as well. And thousands of Tamils disappeared. This is an image of a bombing of an orphanage called Senchole, which happened a few years ago. And the Sri Lankan government said that it had targeted and killed a child soldier training camp. Now, UNICEF has come out and said that this was actually a school where children attended, and I can vouch that I attended this orphanage and I taught English to these children. So for me to see this in the news, and then to hear that the Sri Lankan government denies it and so coldly can say that they actually targeted a child soldier training camp is not just absolutely disgusting, but it shows the amount of inhumanity that the Sri Lankan government possesses. These were children, not just children, these were orphans, children who had already been abandoned by the rest of the world, who had been brought to an orphanage and who had been given some hope of living somewhat a normal life, to be bombed. And I believe 61 of the girls died that day. In November 2005, 3 years after the ceasefire was signed, elections took place. And the Tamils boycotted these elections because they believed that none of the leading candidates would ever run the country with the Tamils' welfare in mind. Mahinda Rajapaksa ran a campaign promising no recognition of the Tamil homeland or the right to self-rule to the Tamils, no to political solution, no to international mediation, and he was elected as president by the rest of the country. So if the Tamils boycotted these elections, the remainder of the country, who were the majority Sinhalese, voted President Rajapaksa in. And since then, atrocities have escalated. In December 2007, Human Rights Watch said, over the last 1.5 years, over 1,000 people have disappeared. 4 people every day are killed or disappeared in Sri Lanka. The government has done shamefully little, and the most targeted population is Tamil men. In December 2007, the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights, Louise Arbour, said, the weakness of the rule of law and prevalence of impunity is alarming. There is a large number of reported killings, abductions, and disappearances which remain unresolved. In January 2008, Mahinda Rajapaksa, the president, pulled out of the ceasefire unilaterally. The Tamil Tigers were still interested in continuing the ceasefire, and he chose to find a military solution, not a political solution, to the Tamil grievances. In September 2008, the Sri Lankan government ordered all United Nations agencies and international aid agencies to leave the Tamil areas of the north as they were about to begin the military onslaught. This is an image of extreme elements of the Buddhist clergy burning the Norwegian flag, and this tells you the mindset of some of the extreme elements in the Sri Lankan government, because Norway was seen as someone mediating the ceasefire, and Norway was seen as a country that gave the Tamil Tigers and the Tamils a platform to negotiate with the Sri Lankan government. Furthermore, Sinhala Buddhist monks who were in part of the ruling coalition had a demonstration outside the British High Commission. And these are some posters that were plastered around Colombo. And this shows that since the Sri Lankan army started the war, some countries, including Britain, called for a ceasefire because of the increasing civilian death toll. And because they called for a ceasefire and they were asking for both parties to come to the negotiating table, they were labeled as terrorists. So during the conflict, since January 2008, Tamils in the Tamil Tiger-controlled area were denied access to independent witnesses. The ICRC, towards the last several weeks to months of the conflict, were only allowed intermittent access, and even that was very, very sparse. The Tamils were denied food, clean water, or medicine, which is all against international humanitarian law. It is against the Geneva Convention. Tens of thousands of civilians had only tents to protect them from indiscriminate bombing and shelling, which fell on civilian targets and hospitals inside and outside the safety zone. So where are we today? On the 19th of May 2009, the Sri Lankan government reported it had won the war. 20,000 Tamil civilians had been killed in the last few months, a minimum of 20,000. Possibly much more. Tamils estimate as high as 50,000. Approximately 300,000 Tamil civilians are detained indefinitely in military-controlled concentration camps. European parliamentarians and British parliamentarians have used the word concentration camps to describe these internment camps, and I'm not the only one using it. And civilians are held behind barbed wire under military gunpoint. The Sri Lankan government says it has released a few thousand of these civilians to their relatives and to other areas. However, as I think the latest count is 280,000 civilians within these camps. However, these people have not been accounted for. There are other smaller camps spread out throughout Sri Lanka where civilians are being detained, and people don't know how many civilians are in there. The civilians have no free access to the Red Cross. They have no free access to independent media. They have no free access to United Nations agencies, and no free access to independent observers. Suspected combatants and youth, approximately 10,000, no one really knows, there are fears that they are being tortured. There's allegations of tortures of aid workers, doctors, journalists who were working in the conflict zone and now are being interned behind barbed wire in these camps. And Tamil civilians in the internment camps are being raped, abused, and abducted. Of the 300,000 civilians, approximately 80,000 are children. And this is an image of 3 orphan children holding a picture of their parents' wedding day. And of those 80,000 children, we can only imagine how many orphans are there. So with allegations of rape, abduction, torture, to have children, orphan children, in these camps with no one to look after them, there are severe, severe concerns. And of course, you know, UNICEF, etc., have voiced their concern, but the Sri Lankan government has done very little to put these concerns at rest. There is also uncertainty of resettlement of the displaced Tamils, whether they'll be put back into their own homes or villages, misuse and misappropriation of aid funds donated by other countries, and destruction of evidence of crimes against humanity. The Sri Lankan government is still not allowing independent observers into the former conflict zone, and there are fears that the Sri Lankan government is trying to hide evidence of crimes against humanity. And of course, since 1949, there's been forced resettlement of Sinhalese into Tamil homelands, and there are fears that this will escalate now that a few 100,000 Tamils are held behind barbed wire. Because of the crowding and the really, really bad shelter provided, there's been epidemics of cholera, hepatitis, and meningitis. And furthermore, because of the recent monsoon season that started recently, and because of the bad infrastructure and really bad toilet facilities, the Tamils in those camps are suffering very much. So we see history repeating itself. J.R. Jayawardena, the president in 1983, in an interview to Daily Telegraph United in the UK, said, "I am not worried about the opinion of the Jaffna people. Now we cannot think of them, not about their lives or their opinion. Really, if I starve the Tamils out, the Sinhala people will be happy." This was in July 1983, day before the Black July riots. In September 2008, the Sri Lankan Army commander, Sarath Fonseca, in an interview to National Post, Canadian newspaper National Post, said, "I strongly believe that this country belongs to the Sinhalese, but there are minority communities. They can live in this country with us, but they must not try to, under the pretext of being a minority, demand undue things." This is September 2008, the very month that the United Nations and international aid agencies were asked to leave the Tamil areas of the north because the Sri Lankan government said they could no longer guarantee their safety.